Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we're talking all things Colorado Rockies. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. To those who celebrated Valentine's Day with a loved one, congratulations. And to those who maybe celebrate alone, just know you're loved by all of us here at Rockies Daily. Let's get into it and let's start talking about the spring. And we've got some early impressions. I think the biggest one is Zach Veen, which we will get to, but some other smaller ones. RJ Pettit, who the Rockies got in the Rule 5 draft. Who knows how successful he'll be? I'd love to see him get an opportunity in the bullpen, but the guy on the mound looks absolutely intimidating. He looks just like a complete beast. So it was kind of fun seeing videos of him and be like, oh yeah, this guy's massive. I feel like he could probably also play in the NBA if he wanted to, besides the point. So he looks big. Quintana has reported to camp and has just been seen as a pros pro for the Rockies, in which we will get to for that building culture and the pitching plan for the Colorado Rockies. Sugano is the first Japanese player that the Rockies have signed since 2007. And so the Rockies have obviously have some different impressions from some of the moves they made. They have, some of these veterans that are already starting to make a difference. But look, the biggest impression right now has to be Zach Veen. Zach Veen coming into camp, who's now 40 pounds bigger, most of that being muscle. He's also gone sober. And if you've seen pictures or videos of Veen, the guy just looks insanely different. He looks like two completely different people. He looks like if new Zach Veen completely ate old Zach Veen. Not in a negative weird way, but in a hey, I'm just gonna get huge and I'm jacked and I'm ready to hit some bombs for the Colorado Rockies. That's essentially what it looks like. The guy just looks completely different, night and day different, excuse me. He just looks huge. And, that's encouraging to just see from guys that take it upon themselves. He's also mentioned, he has gone completely sober, and that's really helped him out as well. And that says a lot about a player to be forthright and to just share maybe stuff that you might be struggling with. And so for Veen, I feel like this is just obviously a big step in just maturing. He obviously probably feels a little bit of the weight of kind of living up to the expectations that have been set for him. And so in terms of an early impression, what a positive one that the Rockies have gotten from Zach Veen. A guy who really struggled at the major league level last year, and took it upon himself to try to better himself and try to give him a better opportunity of becoming an impact player for the Colorado Rockies. So when it comes to early impressions, that's obviously the one that sticks out the most. RJ Pettit also just cracks me up because of how giant he looks on the mound. But obviously, if you guys have anything that has stuck out to you early on, leave a comment down below. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, continue to share these videos. This channel just continues to grow, which has just been really sweet. So seriously, thank you so much. I just wanted to quickly say that. Let's move on to segment number 2, though, and let's talk about this building and budding culture of the Colorado Rockies. And look, Rome wasn't built in a day. The Rockies culture will not be built in a day, but we are starting to see some early movement. One of the coolest things I think that we saw, though, is just how the pitchers that they signed wanted to be here. Michael Lorenzen wants to take on the challenge of pitching at Coors Field. They obviously signed 3 veteran pitchers, which before those signings, they'd signed 2 or 3 starting pitchers in the last 10 years. Now they go out and sign 3 in a single offseason. That is a front office that clearly had motives in deciding what they were going to do. And so all of this just feels very refreshing. That seems to be the word. The word of the week, maybe the word of the last 2 weeks for me, is just it all seems very refreshing. It seems very new, because compared to years past, I mean, let's think about it. After the Rockies won that series against the Cubs, the year before they lost to the Diamondbacks in the wild card round. But it just felt like they were just kind of beating their head against the wall over and over again in terms of, we're just going to keep it all within. We're just going to keep it the same. We like what we've got, and it's good enough to win. And they did that in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. You get the point. They just really didn't make any outside moves that were worth any note. And so for right here to just go and get 3 pitchers, to go and trade for McCarthy and Julian, you sign Castro, right? Like, these are all important moves because they're all veteran players that are all going to hopefully help build this culture, because the wins aren't going to probably come at a premium this year. However, it's so important to have that foundation, and to have something for these players to look toward in the future. But that's not to say this team won't compete. We mentioned in last show, but the floor has absolutely been raised for this team, and that in itself is a culture move. And so you have a floor that's raised kind of across the board. The bullpen didn't add much, but there's a lot of speculation this bullpen could actually be pretty sneaky good for the Rockies this year. And so if you can have at least a decent bullpen, a decent starting rotation, I think a decent starting rotation for the Rockies this year is that if they can be like a top 20, top 22 starting staff, right? Like, just if you can find your way essentially out of that bottom 5, where they like to reside, that would be a huge improvement. But ultimately, we're talking about the culture, and we're talking about how this front office has really worked hard. But also, you look at the staff with Alan Leichman. Alan Leichman really being the most vocal. We haven't heard a ton from Brett Pill, but Alan Leichman, I mean, how encouraging has he been? And we'll talk about him shortly. Warren Schaefer, I mean, he spoke really highly just the other day of so many different players, about Sugano, who he said, hey, we expect him. We looked at him and we wanted him, and we expect him to pitch well with the Rockies, right? Like, these are all positive things that you want to hear. And again, we talk about it. It's one thing to hear things in the offseason. It's another to actually see action during the season. But they've hit all of the right buttons in this offseason. They have told us everything that I think we've wanted to hear. But it's been the most refreshing to hear it from the players and to hear it from guys like Lorenzen, who, I mean, just how he talks, you would have thought he's been with the Rockies for a while, because it's so hard not to cheer for him. And it's so hard not to be like, man, I want you leading us into battle, Michael Lorenzen, just because of him wanting to embrace this challenge and the Rockies getting guys that actually want to pitch here, which has to mean something. And it can mean more if the Rockies can have even a little bit of success this year. That would be huge for the Rockies, as it's just, yeah, it's just huge. And we talk about, pitching, and, we talk about Alan Leichman. It's such a breath of fresh air because he's now gone into, this phase where, hey, we want guys with big pitching resumes, or resume is probably not the word, but repertoires where they've got 5, 6, 7 pitches. Ryan Feltner has mentioned he wants to add another pitch. Kyle Freeland has mentioned he's really embracing this change. So you just look across the board, and it's been some positive early impressions of what Leichman is hoping to do with this pitching staff and how he's able to get these guys to buy in. Really, this third and second segment kind of go hand in hand together. But I'm just so curious how much we'll see of it in spring, with games starting here in a couple days, February 20th. But I'm so curious, what does it actually look like to implement some of these strategies that Leichman has? And he mentions it of game planning for 5, 6, 7 different pitches is hard. Does usage look different? right? Because usually pitchers just have a pitch that they like to go to often. Does Likman try to implement where it's like, hey, you're going to be using a different pitch a lot more in today's game? I I mean, it's just interesting to think of what are some of the different possibilities, and obviously it's not just, hey, you're going to be slugging that changeup 80 times a day. I think it's more so dependent on each matchup and taking matchups that seriously. Of and it's funny that we're talking about it like this, but the Rockies really just haven't had much of an analytics team, and they haven't really gone with this approach. But knowing your matchups really, really well. And if a guy sucks against a slider, just keep tossing that slider at him. It's more than that. It's a game of chess, but ultimately the point of it is I'm just so excited to see, so interested to see what all Likman will be implementing and how much of it we get in spring training. It feels like it'll just be a little pinch, and then once he gets more and more buy-in, that full swing once the season starts. It's just a really interesting, and ultimately it goes back to that word of refreshing, of having guys that are willing to do something different, because that is what we've asked for so long at Coors Field. So to have these different implementations is exciting, and just the excitement that we're getting from players, from Dave Podesta, from Schaefer, as they kind of go headfirst into this next season. So spring is here. It's just all of it is refreshing. I should probably count how many times I said that word, because it'll probably be over. It might be over 1 million times in the next 3 weeks. But regardless, this new plan that the Rockies have, man, where has this been for the last 2 decades? I don't know, but it's been very needed, and just excited to see what that looks like. And finally, let's end the show with some happy news. It's not someone who signed with the Rockies, but German Marquez has signed with the San Diego Padres. And honestly, this has been this is probably my favorite signing of the offseason. It's just a minor league deal, but it is just someone, if there's one player, former Rocky, who I really hope has success, it's German Marquez. Gave 10 seasons to the Rockies, and honestly was really solid for most of that time. Dealt with injuries near the end of his time with the Rocks. But you just hope he can bounce back and find his way onto that opening day roster. He's going to be in a much more friendly ballpark for pitching. And ultimately, if he has still something left in the tank, he could be a really nice pickup for the Padres. Truthfully, I just wanted to take a minute to salute Marquez. Thank him for obviously all that he did for the Rockies, but ultimately, he's just a huge. When you think of those teams in the mid-late 2010s, you think of someone like Marquez, who for a while was really seen as a super durable pitcher. That the talk was always, hey, if he could pitch somewhere that wasn't at Coors Field, he could be pretty successful. Now he'll get that opportunity. Obviously, it looks a little bit different because he's not in his prime anymore. But you just hope for the best for Marquez. So figured I'd end the show on a note of, we send off our child. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. We're sending off our good friend. That's better. Our good friend German Marquez, as he goes and pitches for the San Diego Padres. Hey, look, folks, thanks so much if you made it to this point in the show. Reminder, please leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. If there's things that you're interested in, what do you think Alan Likman's going to do for this team? On top of that, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. It really means so much. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.